Have you found that
Yeah.
has the fear, like you said, it doesn't go away, but has it do you now know to ignore it, or has it gotten smaller some way?
Yeah, so I feel like I've definitely been better at ignoring it because the feeling does always come back, especially whenever you're hopping onto a new production, you're introduced to a new studio and a new team, and you kind of have to go through the whole process of just reproving yourself. Because once you work on a project, your team members get to really familiarize themselves with who you are and your work, and they'll be like, wow, you're a great artist. Great job, Michelle, blah, blah, blah. But then, like, after that, when you move on to a new project, you're kind of reintroduced to all of these people that you don't know, and they don't really know you yet. They kind of just know you based off of your interview and just your portfolio. So you kind of have to reprove to them, like, hey, I am someone who's capable of doing this, and you have nothing to worry about if you have me on your team. So, like, it's just you have to go through that whole process of proving that to them again. But it's just like, I feel like as each project like comes, you kind of get used to it because you're just like, I've done this before, I can do it again. It's just now with different people. And sometimes, like, during critiques or like feedback sessions, they might sometimes say things that might make you feel like, oh, like, I don't want you to get that assumption of me, like that I will always be making that mistake or something like that. And sometimes that can get into your mind a little bit too much if you overthink it, but that's why I try to make myself not think about stuff as much anymore. Because the thing is, like, during feedback sessions, people will say things about your art that might make you question yourself or make you question your decisions, like, but the thing is that these things always happen no matter what studio or production you go to. Nothing is ever entirely your fault. There's a whole pipeline that you can trace back to the root of the issue, and the root of the issue is not going to be just like one person's fault. Like, unless if you're someone who's really just being disruptive and like negative and just actually negatively impacting everyone and the studio, then yeah, that's a problem, but that's another thing. But in terms of just your work and just making sure that you're doing your best, that's all you should really worry about. And any voices that you get in your head that say like, oh, the director said this about your work during this one shot, this means you're shit, that's the voice that you need to silence. Because at the end of the day, everyone is going to be making mistakes on the team. Even the leader of the team is going to be making their own mistakes. But at the end of the day, no one is going to really overthink your mistake and be like, oh my gosh, this one artist, Michelle, she's such a bad worker. No one sits there and overthinks that stuff. So it's like, then why should you overthink that stuff if no one else is? So just deep breaths and just get back to work. And yeah.
Yeah, that's really good advice. What was important to you back then, and has that changed at the start of your career?
Yeah. So honestly, it was really funny because before I graduated, I actually was reached out to someone if I was interested in pitching one of my films to a studio as like a show or something. But I still agreed to reach out to them and meet up for the coffee or lunch. But when they were talking to me, I was just like, no, I just really want to be a storyboard artist. Like, I just really want to just do storyboarding. Like, I didn't really want to do anything beyond that at that time. So when I first graduated, I think I was just really focused on wanting to just live a comfortable life, just storyboarding. And I think that is great. And honestly, I still want to have that life to some degree. But also, I think I realized that after I started my first job and then I started making comics on Instagram, where I was able to just kind of do the thing that I actually wanted to do, which was kind of communicating something through my art that could help motivate or move people in a positive way. I felt like, if I want to do something like that, maybe I might have to start thinking about directing, or maybe get into pitching ideas and maybe eventually run a show or direct a film, or just doing something where, hey, this project was made kind of pretty much like the idea came up from me, but I was able to help lead a team to help carry that idea forward, and then ultimately have this whole team working on this one project that can spread this positive message to the world. I feel like that was something that I eventually learned I wanted to do, which is why directing eventually became an interest of mine, because I was like, hey, it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen this film called Ip Man. It's about like a martial artist in Hong Kong who he kind of kept his power to himself and he didn't really think about teaching others his powers. But then later on, he decided to teach others how to do martial arts just like him. And then from then on, it kind of spreads throughout everyone else. And that's kind of something that I want to do now too, where it's like I want to be able to either lead like my own team and be able to help people become better artists or direct on their own, or just be better at communicating what they want to say through their art. But of course, in the workplace, if you want to have that opportunity, you need to work up to be in a place of leadership that you can even do that. And then on my own time, like I like to make those comics on Instagram or try to make YouTube videos that kind of help encourage young aspiring artists. You don't even have to be in art, because I feel like you can always replace art with whatever else it is you want to do. And it's just the similar concepts that you apply. And yeah, just doing something like that, I realized that being a storyboard artist, like it can be helpful. Like maybe I could just keep staying being a board artist right now and just keep doing comics and videos. But I feel like there's just something about it that, you know, there's still other lands I want to explore in the world of directing and show creating, and just see where that goes first before deciding, oh, I just want to stay a board artist or something like that. And again, there's nothing wrong with just wanting to stay a storyboard artist at all. I think for me, I just am the type who just wants to see how something else goes first to decide if I just want to stay being a certain thing. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah,
It was
that's
very
really, really
complex.
interesting. I have a question about that. Like how do you know that you're not boxing yourself into, oh, I'm a storyboard artist, I'm just gonna do storyboards, versus like genuinely, oh, I'm fine with doing storyboards. But one is motivated by fear that like if I only do storyboards, I don't think I can do anything else. That sort of thing.
Yeah, I think the thing for me is that if you catch yourself having moments daydreaming or just thinking about being something more, like, oh, I want to direct or run my own show or pitch my own short film idea to insert studio name someday, I feel like that's kind of an inkling that maybe you kind of want to explore that path someday. So I think like that's when, you know, maybe you're being a little bit held back by your comfortable state of being a board artist, is when you keep noticing that you're wanting to do these things and you keep thinking about it, but then you kind of try to make yourself repress it. But I feel like you should try to go for it. If you really keep feeling these emotions about this thing, like why not just try? Like you don't have to succeed in every step. Like when you pitch a show, it's not like you have to just keep pitching shows. It could just be something you do every once in a while and see what happens. And if it doesn't, well, you just got another experience up your sleeve. So that's kind of one of the things that I think is what at least I noticed for myself, is that I thought I just wanted to be a board artist. And I would just be like, well, I like my life just being a board artist, right? And then I would go home, but then watch other shows and experience life and just be like, wow, I really wish I could have like a project where I can talk about what I'm gaining from all of these experiences and just putting it into a thing. But I know as a board artist, I can't just do that because you're helping with somebody else's idea. So the only way to really do that and to make a career out of that is if I was interested in directing or moving up somehow. So, but I feel like there are some things about being a board artist that, you know, this is probably, if you think you know that this is just all you want to do for your life, is maybe you have other interests outside of animation that you want to pursue other things. Like maybe you want to be a kickboxing coach or something like that, actually. But then storyboarding is kind of a thing where you still really love your job storyboarding and you love this career, and at the same time, at the same time you envision yourself growing in something else. Like I feel like everyone at the end of the day wants to grow to some degree in some area of their life, and I feel like just because your career is art doesn't mean that that's the thing that you have to be progressing in or something like that, because you could just still enjoy storyboarding, but you gain that gra- satisfaction of growing like elsewhere, if whether it's a sport or some other hobby that you're deeply pursuing in, and that's kind of where you're growing in how someone else would be growing as from a storyboard artist to a director. Like maybe you're getting that feeling somewhere else. And for me, I feel like it was just a thing like ever since I was little, where I just made my own stories and comics and just would show it to my family members and just be like, read my story out loud, or like, look at this animation I made, and make them watch it. I feel like that is ultimately kind of what made me feel like at the end of the day, I want to just be able to produce some sort of animated or art related project that is just my own. And I know in order to gain that title, I have to work my way to be something that will allow me that leadership position.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good
Hmm.
mindset to have. This kind of ties in with that. Um, do you have a dream goal or job or project or like an end goal? Or is it more about the journey for you?
I feel like I'm aware that even if I set an end goal, I know that once I reach it, we'll go down that paradox of like, okay, I did it. Now I'm like, what's next? I feel like I'm starting to learn to appreciate the journey more. And I feel like just just living in this moment and just being like, hey, you're doing something that your younger self didn't even really envision yourself doing. It's just, well, it's like my younger self wanted to be doing this, but it was so hard for me to even imagine that I could be in this position. Like, just really soaking that in allows me to appreciate the journey, but also just remembering to diversify the things I do in my day-to-day life. It's like I'm not just drawing, I'm going out and doing things like having this job as just a storyboard artist is allowing me to live a life outside of it as well. Like I can go on many trips with my family and friends and just experience different things around the world because of it. So that kind of helps me appreciate the journey and just life outside of animation. And I guess in terms of the end goal, I'll always have like this vision of, oh, I want to direct this project someday. I want to create this show someday. I want to publish this book someday. I feel like that's always going to be a thing, but I feel like I just stopped viewing them as end goals because I realized that, hey, I'm just going to work on this project. And once, if I ever get it at the end of the day, I know I'm just going to end back in this circle of being like, okay, well, now that I worked on this project, what's next? I want to work on this other project now. So I feel like I've been training myself to stop focusing on, some career end goal and just kind of making my end goal just more like being at peace with where I am as the end goal, because I feel like I just hate feeling stressed all the time about where I should be by the time I'm 50 or where I should be by the time I'm 60. Well, if I focus on just being happy with where I am now and appreciating what my current position is allowing me to do, then by the time I'm 50 or 60, I'll never have to think about my end goal and feel stressed about it again.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think that changed like what you feel is important to you now?
Yeah, so I feel like right now, one of the things that is the most important to me is just living a balanced life and just being able to move forward with all aspects of my life. Like, I don't want to just be just an artist that's just known for doing her thing. I kind of want to be known for promoting a healthier lifestyle, because I also grew up with a family that was not like as educated in the whole physical health and like health world. So like we had a lot of like health complications with a lot of our family members, where it's like, if we only knew this earlier, we could have prevented this. So I feel like stress also deeply runs in my family. So I'm trying to be better at managing that. And I feel like overall being better at managing and balancing things like just, your hobbies outside of art, or your health, your physical health, or just learning things that are not art related, or just things out of just curiosity and interest, and traveling the world, are things that ultimately help balance out my deep, intense desire to succeed in the career world. So I feel like at least focusing on other things helps me stop being so crazily obsessed about job related stuff, or like having these things dictate my mental health or my, I don't know, my self-esteem, because at some point art was kind of like the only thing I really identified myself as. And I realized that, you know, just being known as an artist only shouldn't really be the only thing that you should be known for in your life. Like, you should be also known as a good person and just someone that just actually helped do good and promote good stuff. So yeah, did that answer your question? I kind of got
Yeah.
like carried away.
No, 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 it's really good. Definitely like that's a really, really good mindset to have. When is the last time that you created without fear, and how did that affect your work?
So I guess the last time I created something without fear was, I guess, right now. Before I did this interview, I was doing another spread in my sketchbook, where on my YouTube channel, I do these things called draw with me's, where I kind of just take the time to draw a spread in my sketchbook, because it's something that I never do anymore. But when I was at school or before I went to school, I feel like doing sketchbooks was kind of like my thing. I loved just having these finished books of art that I just did. And I feel like I never did that anymore. But on my YouTube channel, it's kind of like very, it's like stressful in the fact that I would like to upload weekly, but it's also not stressful because I'm just like, this is kind of more of my hobby. This is kind of more of like something that I do on my own accord. There's nobody really judging me, and I can kind of just talk about my own thing in the videos. So just drawing the spread while knowing that no one is really going to be caring about this other than myself is really therapeutic to know. And it's just, I don't know, just being able to draw traditionally and just making mistakes, knowing that there's no undo button and you kind of have to just live with it, also relieves a lot of stress in the drawing aspect of it. But I guess just having, if you are an artist and your career is doing art, I guess remembering to keep some form of artistic hobby outside of it is a way to help you manage that fear or stress that you might have in your day-to-day life, because you do have that safe space to go to at the end of the day where you're like, I can still draw and feel unjudged and unstressed in this place. Because I feel like when art becomes your job and only your job, then it can kind of, you know, ruin it for you as a hobby or what it originally was as a passion. And I feel like, I don't know, that's just kind of, it can be sad, but, you know, I would like to fight that and just keep a place where art is still a therapeutic resource for me.
Yeah, definitely. I love your draw with me videos. I was really, really inspired by growing up, like 12, 13.
Oh my.
You're you have like the sketchbook, but it's I can't say it because this channel is like it's for
Yeah.
kids. But yeah, but I made my own like anti-sketchbook kind of thing inspired off of your
Oh,
ideas, and that's so true because yeah, especially like when it's like your job or something, it can definitely affect like how you feel about it.
yeah, for sure. And I think I know what sketchbook you're talking about, but having a sketchbook like that is definitely very helpful with just knowing your intentions of just being like, this is a place for me to make mistakes. This is a place for me to mess up, and who cares, because we all make bad art at some point, and this is just the place for it if you want to see it. And yeah, I feel like just keeping it real with knowing that we all make mistakes and even presenting it in the form of a sketchbook kind of just makes it less pressuring, because the more it's just real that we all make mistakes, the less it's a pressuring factor in our lives. Because I feel like no one really talks about that before. Like in the past, it's more like people don't talk about like the things that they do wrong. People don't really talk about their mistakes. They just want to show the finished product. But I feel like nowadays we're kind of more about authenticity and just being real with everyone. And making bad art is part of the process of making good art. And that's the truth.
Yeah, for sure. There's this quote that I really love. It's by Austin Kleon. He says, "All advice is autobiographical." What do you wish you were taught? Or through your videos and comics, what are you trying to, I don't know, like remind yourself or your past self?
Um, so I guess like how is the work I'm making like trying to tell something to my past self?
Yeah, like in the quote, he talks about how whenever somebody like gives you advice, they're really just telling like a past version of themselves what they wish that they kind of did.
Ah, yeah, for sure. So I think a part of what I do now that's trying to help others or my past self is, I mean, this sounds so basic, but it's kind of like just be how should I word this? Be yourself unapologetically, but of course like that comes with terms and conditions because you can always make a really big bad mistake, and in that case yes, please apologize. But in terms of just being yourself and just telling the world that you love yogurt with blueberries or something as random as that is something that I feel like you should just say and not care about. It's kind of like the story about how I didn't want to tell a story in front of my class, but it's just like you should still just go up there and tell a story, even if it's about this really good food you had recently. Like, how did that feel to you? Describe the flavor of the cheese and how it melted in your. That's like a story. You're just talking about a food, but to you, it meant something else when you were experiencing it. And that experience is a story. So I think all stories are valid if you want to just express it in a way that is in your own style and or something like that. So that's kind of what I feel like my art is trying to tell others is that, you know, I might tell a story about this UTI I had, which is a urinary tract infection, which to others, they might be like, what? What is that? Or I've never had one of those. But to me, this is my truth. This is what I experience like almost all the time. Thankfully, I haven't had one in a while, but crossing fingers that it doesn't happen again. But I feel like just something like that is just a normal thing that happens to me. I didn't expect like other people to be like so amazed that someone would just open up about it. But you would be surprised that just by being yourself and just saying something random in your life, how many people out there actually relate to it and find comfort in the fact that someone else out there feels exactly the same as we do, even if it's something as simple as just talking about blueberry yogurt or food. I don't know. So yeah, I think that's something that is just like, even if you're afraid of speaking up, if you're afraid of telling a story, like you're probably just afraid because you don't know what the reception is going to be and how might people might perceive you. But the thing is, whatever you're about to say is that most likely someone else out there is going to relate to it to some in some way. So don't be afraid to share it.
Yeah, for sure. That's really good advice. Is there a project or not necessarily art related, but is there like a project or something that you're putting off because of fear?
Yeah, there is for sure. I feel like I can't tell right now if it's fear or time management because there's a project that I've been thinking about, but obviously I won't say it now since I myself don't even know what it entirely is. I kind of just have a vague concept of it, but I feel like with other things going on, like my main job right now as an assistant director, which is a position that I've kind of been wanting for a while, and just working on these comics on the side. And on this, I'm also in the midst of publishing my first graphic novel, which is really awesome. And just working on these YouTube videos. Like I feel like on a day-to-day basis, my schedule is pretty full. It doesn't have to be full, but I kind of make it full. And I'm just like, but there's this other thing I want to do too. Should I do it or should I not? And then I kind of come back to the question of like, well, all of these things that you're doing right now, like your assistant director gig, your graphic novel, these Instagram comics, your YouTube, these were all things that your past self also said, like, this is something I really want to do. Should I do it? And I feel like there's a time and place where you take care of what you have right now. And then maybe when this idea is fully developed, maybe I can tackle it. But I mean, I do agree that one of the reasons why I'm not tackling it now is because I'm afraid of just how it could throw everything off that I'm already doing right now. And maybe right now is not the right time for it. But I think if maybe I hold the promise to myself that I will do this, as soon as I get like these important current things out of the way, then I'll take care of it. Because, there are some people out there who are just like, don't, don't hesitate, just do it, just do it. But then at the same time, you're like, what if like there are things that I've also wanted to do like in the past and I finally got the chance to do it now? It's not like I'm going to just suddenly throw it all away for this new job or this new project. It's kind of like friendships. It's like you have your close friends, but you're not going to just throw them away all of a sudden the moment a new person comes in. So I'm kind of just trying to be careful, I guess, right now with just making sure that if I do want to take on this project, maybe it will have to be at a time where I have put to rest some of the more important ones that I'm doing now, in which my past self has always been wanting to do and had the same exact emotion I'm having right now about this new project for.
How do you decide to prioritize that?
Yeah, so it's really funny because I actually had this conversation with someone else too, who was just like, when you have a really great idea, do you ever just want to spontaneously do it right now and drop everything else you're doing it? Because sometimes doesn't it just come out better when you just get the chance to do it on the spot? And like to some degree, I think, yeah, that's possible for some projects, but for something like if you want to pitch an idea to a studio or publish a book or make some huge like Kickstarter pilot or something like that, that requires a lot of time and energy. And I think like sometimes we do have to be realistic with ourselves about, are you going to drop everything that you're doing right now for this thing? Because there might be some things that I'm working on right now that I feel like are, I guess, the levels that I have to complete in order to get to the next level, kind of like a video game. Like some of the further levels are still unlocked because you still have to complete levels 2 and 3 to get to level 4. And I do think like at least when it comes to the directorial position that I'm at and like publishing this graphic novel, these are things that I've really wanted to do for a while. And I feel like I should do them to the best of my ability and not be so flaky with everything just because a new idea comes up. And I think like, if anything, the best that you can do if you're in a position like that, where you're in the middle of actually pursuing the dream that you've longed to have, but then another dream comes up, you can just put a bookmark on it and then come back to it later. Like you don't have to do everything right now, in my opinion. I think that some things take time to marinate in your brain before you can really take action onto them. So it's not like you can't touch it at all, because maybe you can just leave a bookmark on it, but while you're doing your other jobs, you can still spend the nights just writing out ideas for it. You can just lightly brainstorm it in a way that it's not taking away from the things that you're doing now. But I also think that it's okay to want to focus on whatever you have on your plate right now, if what you have on your plate right now is really that important to you.
Yeah, definitely. It's easy to get into that mindset of like speed running life.
Yeah, because for sure, I feel like in a perfect world, we would be able to do everything that we've always wanted to do. But, it's always going to be about balancing it out and making sure that the sacrifices you're making are the ones that you actually want to make.
Yeah, definitely.